Hey guys, Haito here, and today I'm doing what if Asta was what if Asta was the reincarnation of Sasuke Uchiha Part 2. Hope you enjoy. Chapter 3, The Magic Night Exam. Asta ran and ran. Yuno had left without him. He didn't even have time to ask for sisters Lily's hand in marriage. Most couldn't see him. He was simply a black blur. The doors of the tall towers were almost knocked off the hinges. "Yuno, where are you?" Asta screamed. "Here," Yuno said calmly, not giving him a passing glance. He ran up to the black-haired boy. "Do you think you're better than me?" Asta shouted. "Yes," Yuno said, even quieter. All Asta could do was growl and huff as he crossed his arms. Everyone just looked. Some snickered. Some just looked concerned. A man stood on a podium. He had a long beard and had a wizard robe and hat. He coughed to get the attention of the room as he frowned. "Well, anyways, let us begin the Grimoire ceremony," he said. The books began to glow different colours. Everyone was in awe as the books flew to their new owner's hand. The kids looked like it was their birthday and Christmas at the exact same time. Some were thin, some were big. But suddenly, a great bright light, similar to the sun, shone in the corner of everyone's vision. A book hovered over Yuno's arms before falling into his hands. People peeked over his shoulders. People began to furiously whisper. "Four-leaf clover" was a commonly said phrase among these talkings. "With this, I'll become the Wizard King," Yuno announced to everyone. People began to mutter, some not believing his words, some even agreeing that he had a good chance of this. Asta, behind him, was holding out his hands, expecting what had happened to everyone else to happen to him, but not a single grimoire even moved him slightly. The life in his eyes began to extinguish. "Wait, where's my grimoire?" Asta said in disbelief. Everyone drew their attention to him for a moment. The laughter was originally just snickering, but it turned to the only noise that could be heard. "Now he's an exotic species," one person said. "Well, how pathetic," another said, and things like this were happening all over the tower. Osta's shoulders untensed. His head nearly fell down to stare at the ground, but with all his strength, he forced himself to look up at Yuno. "Well, I've got chakra," Asta thought, as a natural smile graced his face. "Yuno, you're now my arch rival, and I'll beat you to the title of Wizard King," Asta proclaimed. The room fell silent at the mere unlikeliness of this statement. The laughter began again. Asta simply turned. Suddenly, people felt the urge to run, to flee, to find shelter. Something other than just stand there with him. They envisioned the sight of their bodies being torn to shreds and the blood that followed. They suddenly felt scared of the young white-haired boy, instead of finding him funny. "Shut up," Asta whispered, but it felt like it had come out of a boombox. Even the mage who had hosted the ceremony trembled. "Well, children, you can leave," he said, barely being able to finish his sentence. The only one barely affected by his killer intent was Yuno, as he had received his grimoire and he experienced this before. He sighed. "Let's go, Asta," Yuno said as he began to walk off. Asta followed, not saying a single word, but the moment he'd gotten close to someone, they would move out of his way instinctively. At this point, his Sharingan had flared and burned in his eyes. The moment they exited, he ran to the great demon's skull to think by himself. 30 seconds later, Asta stood as he burned down multiple trees and punched through a couple. "I'll prove them wrong. All of them. I'll become the Wizard King. I'll beat Yuno. I'll unlock my full Sharingan. I'll learn every jutsu that man had talked about and become the Wizard King. And when I do this, I'll change this world for the better. He erupted as he tore down more trees of the forest. 1 hour later, Yuno had been doing light trading to test the limits of his grimoire. The sun was slowly setting and the moon was faintly visible. Yuno took small steps, having no intention of getting back early. Suddenly chains rushed to him. An ambush? Yuno couldn't open his grimoire in time, so resorted to use his raw magical power. A ball of wind rushed from his hands. The chains dodged and wrapped around him. A snake-like one grabbed his grimoire as he heard a clap. 1 minute later, Asta was running back home, running past all the farms constructed by the people of Hajj. Suddenly, he saw his rival and a mage. Seemed to be captured, and that scum was holding his grimoire. Asta's eyes lit up with the colour of blood. How dare someone attack his brother? He rushed at the cloaked man, with a scar covering the immediate arrow around his eye, and black greasy hair. Well, I'll just sell it, you silly boy. The man spoke in triumph. He suddenly felt a fist slam into his gut, forcing him to viciously cough up blood. He looked seeing Asta enraged. He grabbed the man's arm and forced his head to collide into his knee. Then he weaved hand signs. Fireball jutsu! He shouted at the top of his lungs. This onslaught instantly knocked out the mage, forcing his chains to subtract around Yuno. From around Yuno, Asta turned. Don't ever allow someone like this to capture you again, Asta said to Yuno, hating that his rival had been captured by such scum as this. I won't, Yuno said, wanting to slap at Asta and himself. They stared at each other. They suddenly, as if reading each other's mind, bumped fists. I will become the Wizard King, their auras flared. 7 months later. We're here, Yuno. The Magic Knight's entrance exam, Asta screamed, bouncing up and down. His physical appearance hadn't changed, but notably there was a book hanging off his torso. 1 hour later, Asta had gone through the trials of the exam, which he had embarrassed himself on more than one test. He walked side by side with his opponent for the last trial of the exam, Sasuke. He was a flamboyant boy with slick black blonde hair, green eyes and a green jacket, and a cream-coloured trousers. The two warriors stood in front of each other. Thanks for the fight, Sasuke, Asta said, happy. What? You think I'm doing this because I'm feeling nice? Well, I guess I am taking on a nutcase like you. But I'm using you to make me look impressive. You'll be lucky not to be knocked out after my first attack. Sasuke laughed and Asta clenched his fist. Begin, the referee shouted. Asta didn't even activate Sharingan, nor did he use his grimoire. He weaved hand signs. Fire style, Phoenix Flower Jutsu, Asta whispered as flame dragons spewed from his mouth. They reached Sasuke just as a blue bronze ball had surrounded him. It broke through his guard and slammed into Sasuke, burning the areas it had hit, and instantly slammed him into the wall of his bronze shell and knocked him out. The match was then announced in Asta's favour as he walked back into the crowd. 1 hour later, Asta looked at the two hands in the air. The captain of the Crimson Lion Kings and Yomi of the Black Balls. Asta sensed their power. They were almost identical in strength, but he sensed a different quality to Yomi. I choose the Black Balls. And that's where chapter 3 leads off. I hope you enjoy the next part. It's going to be really digging into the plot of Black Clover. Really want to start quickly getting into the proper plots of the shows I'm exploring. So yeah, I do hope you like that. If you've got any what if suggestions, please notify me about them. I'm pretty interested to do anything you suggest. But anyways, to be honest, so far I'm pretty enjoying doing these stories. It's pretty fun, to be honest. And I've loved seeing the growth so far. It's been pretty great. Anyways, see ya. Bye.